I think it's also probably a misconception that as an African parent, you ought to be strict on your kids in terms of their upbringing.
Hello everyone. Welcome to a very new episode of the Atalaku Effect. As always, I'm your host Claudel Kamgong, and today I'm very excited to have a nice, interesting discussion with Jonas Aboagye. Jonas, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Claudel.
So, Jonas, to get us started, we're going to talk about your life. So, you are from Ghana, but let's dig deeper into your childhood, where you went to school, how you grew up, and the type of values that you had as a child.
Yeah, sure. So, as you rightly stated, I'm from Ghana, born and raised in the capital, Accra. And I was born into an entrepreneurial family, but my dad was an army officer, and my mom essentially has been into business, into commerce, as long as I can remember. Growing up was exciting. I think I had one of the best childhoods that any kid can dream about.
Yeah, why is that?
It's because my parents were pretty much logical in their approach to our upbringing, and we were more of friends at home than parents-child relationship being authoritarian as others would think about it. It was pretty interesting. I grew up. I have three siblings, two boys and a girl.
Are you the youngest or in the middle? Or
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm the second from the top.
Got it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I was pampered, but my parents were they were very democratic when it came to decision making.
I see. Which is interesting because I would think that with your dad being in the military, you always have that idea of military being very strict and disciplined. So where do you think that approach came from? You talk about African parents, as you know, all the time of slapping you and this is how we do things. So where does that democratic approach do you think came from?
I think it's also probably a misconception that as an African parent, you ought to be strict on your kids in terms of their upbringing. Yes, my dad, he was disciplined, right? And that was one thing he taught us, to be organized, right? And you would only incur his displeasure if you weren't really organized. And I think from childhood, that was one thing he taught us. Okay. You knew what to do on weekends, for instance. On Sundays, you knew you had to prepare for school, at least get ready for the entire week, not just a few days into the week. You clean your shoes, your socks ready, you have your school uniforms ready and all. So you know that on Monday it's good to go. You knew when to watch TV, for instance. After school, you had some 2-hour window, and that was it. You had to respect it, or else my dad was going to be upset. So, indeed, once you followed his ground rules, you were always in his good books.
I see. What was the consequences of not following those rules, right? Because I think at some level, a lot of us could say that, for instance, I know myself that coming back from school, I don't know, on a Tuesday, if I put the TV on and watch cartoons, my mom going to slap me, right? That's like, I know it's a action consequences type of. So in your case, when you say that if you were not as disciplined as your dad would like, what type of consequences were you facing?
It was multifaceted, right? Yes, there were times where he would bring his rod out, and there were times when he would just let you know that, hey, you are not being reasonable, right? And that he didn't want to hit you. So at that point, it also made you realize that, come on, yeah, I'm not an animal to be hit.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting approach. How do you think that helped you as you look at your life today, or just the way you operate on a daily basis, right? That discipline or that education, how do you think it's helping you today?
So For me, I'd say that education starts from home, pretty much. And some of these traits that I picked up has been essential to me throughout my adult life till now. I see myself as a very organized person. I keep a diary where I actually write down action items that I need to do. Whenever I'm having conversations with others, especially let's say my wife or something, I like to plan ahead, right? And to others, a plan is fluid. For me, a plan is rigid, but with built-in what I would call tolerance or allowances, right? I even like to plan my options, right?
I see.
That is something I believe I picked up from home, and that has kept me pretty much going, even in tough times. I know that things will not necessarily happen according to my plan, but I believe having a plan is better than no
Just
plan.
winging.
Yes,
Of course.
and I've also learned as I've grown up that plans do change, right, and that it is okay if things do not go according to plan.
I see.
Yes.
That's interesting. What you said, I had a lot of conversation with my brothers about what you say action plans, like basically what you said about talking uh, with your wife, Bridget, and out of that, like write down action items, what you need to do. It's something that my brother really believes in, and like so with my siblings, I have my brother and then two sisters. So every Saturday or Sunday, we try to talk for at least 1 hour, update ourselves. What are we up to? Work, life, balance, and everything. And out of that, we try to have action items where we actually write into a Skype group who needs to do what so that the week after we can check up. So it's interesting that even with your wife, you basically sometimes treat those conversations as a business meeting, right? Like at the end of the meeting, what do I need to do? And you keep that into your diary. It keeps you in check as you go forward. It's pretty cool.
It's been really helpful, and she's also picked up a few traits, right? There are certain times that we have certain, let's say, serious conversations, and then I get an Excel sheet from her. Sometimes you can't help it, but you realize that indeed things gets done most of the time. Other times they don't. Do I get upset? Yeah, sometimes. I'm human, but it's okay. It's
That's
okay.
awesome. That's awesome. And, let's get back to the childhood. So we talked about the way you grew up. You said entrepreneurial family. The decision making was more democratic than just coming from your mom and your dad. Now let's talk about school. I know, just like in Cameroon, there are boarding schools in Ghana. Did you go to a boarding school? What type of environment was it, and what type of memories, good or bad, do you have from your high school life?
I would say that high school was one of the interesting points in my life.
What is that?
That is because in Ghana we do have boarding schools as well. I think that was the brainchild of the first president of the country, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, to facilitate ethnic integration between the citizens of Ghana. So the boarding school system was pretty great in addressing that. So you had people coming from different parts of the country being together in one environment for about 3 years of their senior high school life. And at the end of the day, there's that harmony developed amongst you and that respect amongst you.
And you went to a boarding school?
Yes, I did go to a boarding school.
And is the boarding school the same system where you live at school and you come and see your family like maybe once every 6 months? Is it the same system as well?
Yeah, pretty much. You come home when school is on recess, when there's vacation, but your parents are allowed to visit once a month or twice a month. I must say that the system in Ghana, in terms of Ghana's education, from let's say primary school, the whole of your primary school, till let's say primary 6, elementary class 6, It's more of a general education. Then you move from there to junior high school. Then you go to senior high school. So all throughout from primary school to junior high school, it's a normal school system where you go to school in the morning, come back home, and all of that, right? Even though there are few boarding schools, but most when it gets to the secondary school phase, most schools are boarding schools at that point. And the boarding schools tend to do very, very well than most of the what we call day schools, where people would go and go back home. Most of the senior secondary schools are boarding schools, and they are run by the church.
When you say they do very well, is it in terms of like results? Is it the percentage of students going from one grade to the other? How do you measure the doing better?
Okay, so academically, when it comes to the final year examination, that is the entry examination we go to allow us to go to the university. Most of if you are to take, let's say, the top 20 senior high schools, most likely 15 of them would be boarding schools.
And I'm guessing most of them are private, right?
No, they are actually government-assisted schools, and they are originally run by the church. So they were run by the church until some point where the government sort of took over. So the church still has huge influence in this boarding school. So I attended a Presbyterian school, and it was an all-male school. So the name of the school I attended, Presbyterian Boys Secondary School, is actually one of the best science colleges in Ghana, and they tend to admit the cream of the cream of students coming from the junior secondary school level. Most recently, there was a national science and math quiz competition. Unfortunately, my school came second, and the interest of the alumni of these schools in those quiz competitions till now, it's mind-boggling. Social media is buzzing with current students and alumni cheering on their schools, and it's the whole country comes to a standstill during the very final competition. My school has the best record, if I would say, in the competition.
Nice.
And it's still a bragging rights that we have against other schools. We take our alma maters quite seriously.
That's pretty
Ghana.
cool. That's pretty cool. Especially, I'm thinking that's probably the first time I hear about a country where the best schools, or again, the schools with the best track record academically, is a public school, right? Like most of the times in the US, or like the private schools are known to be the education is supposed to be better, but I'm guessing the influence of the church is also part of why when we talk about Africans in general, we say, oh, Ghanaians are always nice. I'm guessing the education plays a role. Can you talk about, just quickly, a couple of, like high school for you, does it remain a good memory, a bad memory? What was describe your day-to-day. Were you shy back then? Were you extroverted? Like, what type of memories does high school bring to you?
Largely, for the most part, I had very good memories. In your first year, most people may kind of feel terrible, and that is because you are the junior on campus, and everyone is either trying to pick on you or have you do stuff. But it's all part of the training, in the sense that it helps you build your confidence and stand up for yourself. Toughen you up, and you know what's right and what's wrong, right? And from that point onwards, when you go to the university, you are there by yourself, you know. So that isn't your first experience of living by yourself as a teenager. You become very organized. No one pushes you or tells you to go learn or study, right? All of those traits has been built in you from the secondary school level. I'd say I was quite extroverted. I don't consider myself to be a shy person. I'm very assertive and highly opinionated.
Nice.
I like to speak my mind and bring my point across. And I'd say that probably the boarding school system also helped shape me up. in that regard. So
Got it.
largely, it's been a very good experience for me, because since then, I'd say since age 13, I haven't really been home, because from 13 years you are in the boarding school system. Once you are done, you are either 16 or 17, you go to the university for 4 years. It's also some sort of a boarding school system as well, if I'd put it that way, because you stay on campus the whole time. And afterwards, you are in the job market.
then
And
you
work
have your
is
own house.
around anywhere. It wouldn't necessarily be, let's say, where your parents stay or come from. So for me, since age 13, I haven't really been home. And those traits that I picked up in boarding school during that initial phase is what I believe has carried me along till this point that I find myself living here in the US.
I see. So that's pretty interesting, because basically, as you said, since you were 13, you had that strong sense of independence, right? Like, of course, your parents are there, as you say, they visit once a month, but after high school, university, so you kind of become your own parent pretty quickly, because you don't necessarily have that paternal or maternal figure to guide you through your choices. You're put in a situation where at a very young age, you had to make your own decision. So after high school, how did you know? Did you know for a fact what you wanted to do next, and what was the process from high school to university?
So it's quite interesting. The system we have in Ghana, most often than not, at the junior secondary school level, before you even get into high school, your strengths are sort of assessed by your teachers, and that influences the sort of school you even attend in terms of the high school you get to attend. So let's say if you are quite smart, good in science and math, the expectation, or let's say you are steered towards focusing on business or science-related programs. And if you were, let's say, good in English, a good writer and all, you were sort of steered towards general arts, which leads to careers like, let's say, law, banking, communication, and the likes. If you were good artistically, you were pushed in a direction of visual arts, right? So from the onset, you are sort of put into a bucket, right? It has its strengths and it has its flaws. So going into high school, as I said, the school I attended is also considered a junior science college. They are good in science and maths. They tend to produce most doctors, most engineers, and all. So growing up, you are thinking about, hey, what is it that I want to become in future, right? For me, almost all my friends would tell you they wanted to be doctors and nurses and all, because those were the professions that they saw around, right? But I remember an essay I wrote back in primary school where it gave me the opportunity to explore what else was out there. So I came home, asked my dad, hey, aside you being a soldier, you man being in commerce, my uncle the doctor, and that uncle that I don't really know what he does, but he also goes to the office. What other careers are there, right? So they now told me of being a pilot, being an engineer, being this, being that. I'm like, okay, so what does it take to be an engineer? What does it take to be a pilot? What does it take to be a doctor, right? And I did enjoy math. I did enjoy thinking through problems, coming up with solutions. So very quickly, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. Growing up as well, I was very inquisitive. I wanted to know how things worked, right? So I would sort of take my toys apart, try to fix them, try to put them together. So I was pretty much hands-on as well. Anytime my dad would take his car to the mechanic, I was there, right? So at a very young age, I knew the names of tools and all very quickly. So to me, I would say that decision kind of came naturally. That going to the senior high school, I was going to pursue a program in general science, which would lead to either medicine or engineering. But my focus was in engineering. So when I got to the senior high school, I found myself in a general science program where I took classes in physics, advanced mathematics, chemistry, and the likes, and geography. So I switched biology for geography because I knew that I didn't want to become a doctor. I wanted to be an engineer.
Oh, you had that choice as well. You don't have a set of class that you take. You have the ability to choose and switch a couple of classes.
Switch a couple of classes.
In high school, that's pretty good.
In high school. So, yeah, so that is good, but it also has its flaws. It meant that if you didn't take any of these general science programs in high school, there was no way you could become a doctor, for instance, right?
Yeah, because you skip the fundamentals.
Exactly. But if you took those science programs, it was very easy to later on switch going to the university to, let's say, architecture, to engineering, to medicine, to law. So very early and quickly, we tended to specialize coming from high school.
In college, university, you then specialized in engineering. What did you do? What was the first career move once you were done with undergrad? I know you worked in different countries, so can you walk us through the move from the end of university to your first job all the way to the US?
Okay, sure. So for me, in the university, I studied petroleum engineering, right? And that was also another quick specialization for me. I look back and I pretty much think to myself, probably I should have done probably electrical engineering or chemical engineering, because those are more broad engineering disciplines than studying petroleum engineering. That put me on a specific path in a specific bucket. But that paid off. That decision paid off, because I'm one person who is, again, quite focused, and I really go after my goals. Coming out of undergrad, we were fortunate at the time that Ghana, we had discovered oil at the time, and there was a lot of interest from multinational companies who are now coming, set up, and trying to establish themselves. So, of course, there are a number of recruiting events on campus, but then those weren't that serious. But in Ghana, once you were done with university, that's undergrad, you had to do what we call national service for a year, right? That is because we do not pay tuition in college. Yes. That is paid for by the government.
And the way to reimburse is through that 1 year.
Yeah, so the way to sort of give back is through that 1 year of national service. And this can be in the private sector or in the public sector. So what happened was that the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation took an interest in us, because at the time there was focus in oil and all. So most of my colleagues who did very well were now presented to a number of oil companies. Hey, these are candidates we have already. They've gone through the program and all. So at your discretion, choose and pick those you want to work with. So there were a number of interviews that we had to attend and all. And I was fortunate to have joined a multinational company called Baker Hughes, headquartered in Houston, Texas. And that was a big game changer for me in terms of my professional development.
Yeah, because that's when you started traveling extensively as well, right?
Exactly. So working in the oil industry was exciting for me. That was because I got exposed pretty much at a very young age, and as a very young engineer with a huge responsibility. I had my trainings here in the U.S. in Houston. So just when I was hired from school, at the end of my national service with Baker Hughes, they picked me up as a top talent, brought me here for about a year, attended their corporate universities, had a number of on-the-job training here in the U.S. So at the time I was done with that training and I went back to Ghana, I was all seasoned and ready to hit the ground running.
So how many of you for the training were selected in Ghana to attend the corporate training in
So for my department, I was the only person. In Nigeria, there was also one person. There was also one person that came from Angola in my training program, right? But in other departments, there were also a number of engineers who were picked for different programs in different parts of the world. So the company also had a corporate university in Dubai and in Singapore. So depending on your discipline, depending on your business area and business need, you would either go to Dubai or Singapore or here in Houston, Texas. So I had my training here in Houston, but when I went back to Ghana, I wasn't an engineer just for Ghana, because there were operations in several other countries in Africa. My responsibility was pretty much all over Africa. I focused in deep water oil exploration, which was, very technical, and there weren't too many engineers with those strengths. So I found myself working on projects in Ivory Coast, in Senegal, in South Africa, and on land in Kenya as well.
I see. And that's just for Africa, right? I think.
And that was just for Africa.
Outside of Africa, I think you've been to Brazil.
So outside of Africa, I've been to Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, to be specific. Those were very interesting and exciting times in Rio. I've been to Dubai, and very briefly in the UK, that's Aberdeen.
So definitely, clearly, out of undergrad, focus on oil engineering. You get recruited as a top talent. You have your training. You work extensively in Africa and other countries as well. You focus on deep water. Now, with that in mind, of course, international type of career. Where does the idea of the MBA comes from, and when did you decide that it was enough, that you needed to either do more or acquire different skills? What prompted the application for business school in the US?
So the decision process was, it took a while, right? I didn't just wake up one day and decided, hey, I wanted to enroll in an MBA program. Throughout my career, I kept being assigned more responsibility. At a point, I was responsible for the P&L of my department, and that meant that I had to learn on the job. I had to learn finance. I had to understand accounting, and obviously, those responsibilities will expose some knowledge gap, right? But then the companies had all the necessary structures to sort of support you, right, in your decision making and also bring you up to speed. And that was a good thing about the company at the time. And I think it's something they still do. You tend to grow through the process, right? So at one point you're an engineer, you tend to experience operations, and it all depends on your interest as well as your skill set that you are developing along the way, and if you can be trusted with more responsibility. So, of course, the more responsibility you're entrusted with, personally, I enjoy the process of learning, right? So I realized that, hey, there's this knowledge gap. I don't know too much about finance, neither do I know the accounting principles that I know now after my MBA, for instance. But then what it is that when I sat back and thought through all of my I would say shortcomings at the time, I figured that to be that seasoned business personality, because I didn't just look up to, let's say, my boss, who was an operations manager or my country manager at the time. I did admire my country manager greatly because one, she was a female and she had risen to such heights. So you'd ask yourself, what skill sets did she have, and what leadership skills did she exhibit that helped her go up the corporate ladder? I describe myself as a very ambitious person, but not as ambitious as Shakespeare's Macbeth. But hey, I also want to get to the top. And to get to the top, I realized I needed those skill sets. I needed that to build my arsenal my repertoire of decision making tools, and part of it was an MBA, where I would gain formal education in finance management, operations management. All of this you put together helps you make good business decisions.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I think it's going to be interesting for our listeners as well. I like your thought process there. First of all, you look at someone that you admire. You ask yourself the question, what exactly do I need from where I am? What type of skills do I have first? What type of skills am I lacking? And how exactly do I fill that gap? And the answer for you was that MBA that you did in Texas CMU. So I think we can stop here for the first part. Thanks a lot, Jonas. For the second part, I encourage our listeners to follow us. We will talk about Jonas' life from a different point of view because Jonas is a dad. So we're going to talk about what it means for him to be a dad, how he thinks about his education, or just get a bit more personal on that level. So Watalaku for you for listening, and let's see each other in a bit.